Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. Join Reiki Master and Quantum Healing expert Wes Coons as he guides listeners through the depths of self-discovery and spiritual enlightenment to uncover the version of you we haven't met yet. Hello and welcome back to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. Welcome to episode 9. Before we get started, I am going to apologize to Wes because we are now 3 takes into recording this episode because we've been having difficulties, mostly with me hitting record.
Yeah, so the whole first time, every second was done, and it was probably the best podcast ever. I'm just saying. Except for this one because we're redoing it.
Yes, and you have no proof because we have no recording. So
That is right. So welcome to the show. Today is Memorial Day. It's rainy a little bit in sunny Virginia Beach, world headquarters for VB Healer. So thank you for coming. We are now in our 9th country. My friend Sugar Bear, hey Michelle, is now listening to the show. We have had so many people reaching out about the last episode.
yeah, we have. And I think that's why we're going to today talk a little bit more about that, aren't we?
Yeah, there was just some things that they just felt like that episode wasn't done. And so we're going to talk about that. And if I can remember any of the other things I've previously spoken to when we recorded the first 3 times, that might come back. So we'll see.
Okay, I feel like that's a slight dig at me. And he did turn the computer to face him so that he can see that we are indeed recording.
Yeah, so we're working through it. We're now on YouTube, VB Healer on YouTube. You can find us at VB Healer on Instagram and vbhealer.com. You can find us online. And if you go to our Instagram page, and what's your Instagram page?
An Abundant Universe.
An Abundant Universe. Andrea has some really good stuff there. She has your podcast. What's your podcast called?
How good it can get, because life can get really good. You just need to have the right tools.
The first person on her show was this super talented guy from Virginia Beach.
Yes, he was. And I actually hit record on that one, so you guys can check it out.
Yeah. You notice the one episode, just saying. But so what all are we? Gosh, we got so much to talk about. I received a text message from Yuli this week. Hi, Yuli. And she was asking, basically she said, at the end of the last episode, as I'm driving away from working on the house, she said there's a cliffhanger there. And, what happened? Did the people go to the light? What happened? And yes, they did. They did go to the light. But the one warrior, the one man, the one person stayed back. And I remember, I think it was that very night, I was looking at my phone on the security camera, and I could see his face in the trees. And it was quite clear to see. I've been looking for a photo of it. I know I had screenshotted that. I just don't know if it survived. And this African man's face had, this scream. He was just, his mouth was open. He was screaming as loud as he could. And, if you can imagine what an African warrior looks like, there's just these beautiful, distinct features that he has. And I felt intimidated at first, probably still a little intimidated if I came across him, but I could feel his pain and his sadness. I mean, could you imagine what those families, those people, those individuals went through, being taken from their home, taken from everything that they have, sold into slavery, thrown on a boat, brought over to the other side of the world, and watched their families go through what they went through? I couldn't imagine it. And you could see that in his expression as he was screaming. There was also, at some point, a bear that would show itself in the tree line and a wolf. And I don't know what that was, but they were probably 6 or 8 feet tall as well. And one of the things you would see looking through the security camera, because I couldn't see it with my bare eyes, is everything on my property, every tree, every bush would shake back and forth constantly. But the trees on the other side of the property would sit still, so you could see where the property line was. It's pretty bizarre. So one day, I don't know, I was talking to one of the priests, and I had received a bottle of holy water. And I got this great idea. It was a Saturday, it was nice, and I was frustrated, aggravated, and freaking pissed off and miserable. So I started drinking. I don't know, 6, 8, 10 beers into it. I decided that would be a good time to get out of the camper, because I still lived on the property, and go over to the house and start getting some payback. So what I had done, Andrea, is I had taken holy water and poured it in these buckets, and then that made that holy water. So I had all these different buckets of holy water, right?
I just want to know how you get that much holy water.
Well, it was one little bottle. Well, I may have gone in there with a bigger bottle and filled it up. Then I was pouring that into like a 5-gallon bucket, then another 5-gallon bucket, and creating more holy water. You know what normal people do.
As one does.
As one does on a Saturday when they've been drinking. And so I had also gone to the store and I'd bought a submersible pump. And in my thinking, I turned the swimming pool into holy water by pouring all that in there. And I got in. I tell you what, it felt great. I'm going to be going this week. I thought about it yesterday. I'm going to get some holy water from the church, and I'm going to put that in my swimming pool.
I definitely want to swim in some holy water.
Yeah, it's nice. You should do it too. So one of the things that used to scare me about that house is if I got in the pool, what if I was under the water, they could put like a cap on top of the water or something. It freaked me out. It scared me getting in that. I didn't get in the swimming pool very much. And when I did, I always had, like, if I went under the water, my arm was out of the water. Because I felt that if something happened, I'd be able to force myself out. And when I would go in the house by myself, I had this 10-foot 2x4 that I laid in the house, and I put it where the door couldn't close, so something couldn't shut the door and lock me in. I remember how insignificant that made me feel. I hated that feeling. And you figure by this time, things were crawling on me all the time. It felt like roaches in my ears and my eyes, everywhere. So I had converted the swimming pool to holy water. I threw the pump in there, and I'm spraying this holy water all over the trees, all over the concrete, the whole backyard. And I'm like, fuck you, fuck you. I've got your ass. I've got your ass. You can't do nothing. And I made a mistake. I said, I'm stronger than you. And the second that came out of my mouth, it was like being hit by a lightning bolt. And you got to remember, for the most part, previous to this, they couldn't touch me outside of the house. So I thought I was pretty safe. And as I'm on my hands and knees, I cut myself. I hit the ground so hard. I'm bleeding. I'm discombobulated. I don't know what's going on. And that is from the energy of whatever was attacking me. And it was extremely painful. So think about, they attacked me in my third eye. So that's right in your forehead. That's your psychic connection. That's your connection to, to the divine. It's whatever you want to call it, but that is your spiritual center. It's like somebody taking a drill and just drilling into your forehead. And if I were to go in the house after 1 or 2 minutes, I'd be a little bit confused. After about 8 minutes, I would be significantly discombobulated. And after about 15 minutes, I couldn't find the door. And it would get worse from there. So when this hit me, it was the worst confusion I'd have ever experienced. I couldn't really stand up. I didn't really have my motor skills. And I just remember being on the face on the concrete, the sprayer's still going, and thinking to myself, what I meant to say was, you're not stronger than God. And for whatever reason, that thing did not, Andrea, for whatever reason, it didn't have a sense of humor.
You're telling me that demons and bad spirits don't have a sense of humor?
They did not have a sense of humor.
This is news.
This is news. This is news. Somebody told me during that whole thing, you just need to tell them to leave you alone. I'm like, okay. Bad spirits, leave me alone. It was cute. It took me 2 hours to get off my property because I had to crawl on my hands and knees because I wasn't capable of standing. I wasn't capable of speech. I wasn't capable of even dialing and calling Ty or 911 or something of anybody to come get me. And I just remember how much pain they brought, the anger that was in the air. And it was like, how dare you with this arrogance? They were so pissed at me for being arrogant. And I was so pissed for having my ass kicked all the time. And you don't know how alone you are until you're in something like that, right? When you're sitting there, you might not be sitting there around your swimming pool having this experience, but you're sitting there on your sofa or in your car or in the bathroom at work sitting on the floor because you are so fucking broken and so sad and so confused and so not understanding why at this age, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, your life is where it is and you can't seem to manage it and nothing changes. There's a secret to fix that. The secret is inside yourself. You have to go inside yourself. You have to change what's inside of you to change what's happening on the outside of you. Life happens for you, not to you. Life was happening for me in that experience because I was going through a spiritual awakening. Because I had just gotten out of another relationship with another person that threw me in the trash easily, that didn't give a shit about me, that didn't give a shit about anything but themselves, and I didn't understand, or I chose to ignore the red flags, and some variation of all of that. And then the spiritual awakening of the house was happening for me to step into the person I'm supposed to be. This healer, this person with gifts, this person that works with Jesus to heal people. Jesus flows through me to heal me, and together we heal the world. That's him doing that, not me. So how does that relate to you? Start changing the way you think. Start choosing you. If you're in a relationship that you don't understand, start looking for the red flags. Start having conversations. Do something simple. I've got a new book coming out called The 15-Minute Transformation. Why don't you get it? 15 minutes a day changes everything when you follow these simple steps. Andrea and I have been working on this new system. My friend Trinae at the Reiki Wellness Center has been talking about it and helping us understand it too. She is fantastic, by the way. The system is this. Healing doesn't have to take years. You can heal just like that. It doesn't mean it won't hurt for a little while, but when you start to understand how life happens for you and not to you, where the lessons are and the blessings are, even in the pain, you can start maneuvering faster and faster and faster and changing who you are and changing your vibration. Your vibration tells the universe and people around you how to treat you. Back then, it said, treat me like I was nothing because I felt like I was nothing. Today, my vibration is so high, it's the highest it's ever been in my life. Andrea is a vibrational expert, aren't you, Andrea?
Yes, and I have a book called Vibrational Mastery. A high vibration is your superpower, because when you have a high vibration, you literally wear it like a coat of armor, and the bad stuff, the lack, the sadness, the toxic people, they just can't even touch you.
That's right. That's right. If you think about it, if you really allow yourself to disconnect from society, disconnect from the news, disconnect from the bullshit people tell us how to live, sickness is a vibe. You get sick when that sickness connects with your vibration. I remember when I got COVID. I knew I wasn't going to get COVID. I knew I wasn't. My friend Sabrina had COVID. I brought her medicine, came in her house, sat with her, held her for 15 minutes because she was that sick. She needed to be held. And I didn't get sick. A month later, I got sick because there was an event that was happening. And I remember I told myself, man, I wish something would happen that I didn't have to go. I lowered my vibration and the universe said, hey, we can do that. I got COVID. Because my vibration decreased, my mind said I wanted something negative to happen to take me out of this situation. And the easiest thing was everything we were talking about. Some of you might not understand that right now, but you stay around long enough, you're going to understand those things. So if you're that broken, why don't you create some affirmations? I am beautiful. I am gifted. I am loved. I love myself. I love this job. I love this life. Every step I take raises my vibration. Every breath I take heals my body. Jesus flows through me to heal me, and together we heal the world. Do you think I've said that a few times? What are you saying to yourself every day? I used to say I'm ugly, weak, and stupid. Now I say I'm beautiful, I'm gifted, I'm loved. I feel better saying it this way. And when I was on that concrete, crying, I didn't care if I died. Honestly, I wanted to. I'm like, fucking take me, dude. Just take me. I didn't have it in me to do it myself. And just so you know, that is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And thank God I didn't have that in me to do it myself. And so after a couple hours, I got off that property. And I remember putting the truck in gear, and I was able to back out into the street, and I parked there, and I probably sat there for an hour or so before I was capable of driving. And I knew that was a new experience. They hadn't been able to do that, right? So this was right after we did that big ceremony when I wasn't supposed to. So I knew I needed to move off the property. I needed to take the camper and go live somewhere else. But one of the things I was thinking about earlier when we were trying to figure out, what's the podcast going to be today? What are we going to talk about? And in that last episode, when I'm in that room, whatever it was that crawled inside of me, you haven't felt lost and insignificant until you have something crawling down inside of you as you're gagging and it's stretching your bones and pushing your stomach out. And there is not a fucking thing you can do about it. Ain't nobody you're going to call. Ain't nobody you're going to go help you. A priest ain't going to show up. Ain't nobody going to show up. Nobody could have come and fixed that. And if there was, I hadn't found them at the time. I found them later on. But I remember sitting there hysterically crying at the top of my lungs, begging God. And it took a lot at that time for me to talk to God. Begging him, you've got to help me. You've got to help me. You've got to help me. And nobody came. Nobody came through that door and pulled something out of me. But you know what did happen? Is I don't know what floated out of that sky. I don't know what landed around me. There's little egg things that look like Tic Tacs. There's really big Tic Tacs. I mean, they're like 4 times the size of a football. They're big. They didn't hatch and something come out of them, but the room shifted. I stopped crying. I didn't feel lost and desperate. God gave me faith. Because his job was not to come in that room and pull me out. His job is to love me unconditionally while I went through my experience and I pulled up my fucking bootstraps and moved forward. Are you pulling up yours and moving forward? Andrea and I were getting ready to start the podcast, 4 podcasts ago before we hit the record button. But I said, we haven't prayed yet. And we prayed, and I asked God, give us the strength to do this. I've already got the story. I don't need somebody to help me with the story. I've lived it. But I need the strength to maneuver through it and still be the man I am, because this has been hard. You have no comprehension of what this has been like for me. No comprehension of the last 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Somebody asked me, I noticed after the 3rd episode, the show shifted. I was like, yeah. Because my mental health and my stability was in question going back through this process. And people were saying, well, the show's too heavy. I'm like, yeah, it was heavy. Thank you for sticking around. I didn't know how to make it lighter because that's what it was. And I had to break into going backwards or going back to heal what still needed to be healed, because I knew if I'm doing a podcast, I have to tell the truth and I have to tell everything. How can I tell you life happens for you if I give you some bullshit story? You know what my story is? It sucked. I've had a hard life. People are like, oh, well, you own a real estate company, you have all these things. I'm like, yeah, I fucking went to work too. I earned it. And I experienced life. And at some point, I made a decision. And I remember that decision. It was right when COVID was starting to turn on. It's like that January, right? Mid-January. And for me, the decision was I felt like I had some opportunities, maybe a little bit of gift here or there. But I knew if I didn't do a lot of self-healing, I couldn't become the man I was supposed to be. And I didn't even know where to go or what to do. I just made the decision. I am going to become the best version of myself. And then somebody shared with me later, Wes, you don't have to be the best version of yourself. But what you do have to do is find that deepest, darkest piece of you that you fucking hate the most, that part you're embarrassed about, that part that you just fucking want to cut out with a knife and just get rid of, and you love that part of you. When you can do that, that's when you're becoming the person that you're supposed to be, and everything else is going to open doors for you. The reflection that comes to you, your vibration, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that's when opportunity is there and you can manifest at a high level. See, you're already a master at manifesting. Where you're sitting right this second, you manifested it. You're like, wait, I'm divorced. My kids hate me. They took my children. I just got out of jail. I'm struggling with addiction. I'm broken. I've had too many sex partners. I was used. I was abused. I was raped. I was sold. I was. Yeah, so fucking was I. Until I made a choice. And that choice is, I'm worth something today. You are beautiful. You are gifted. You are loved. Somebody recently would say to me all the time, everything you need is already inside you. And the way she was saying it was a negative. Let me explain. Everything that you need is inside of you. However, I was talking about healing what's inside of me that's messed up, becoming a better version of myself, finding that piece of myself that's not broken anymore, but needs healing. Because if I say I'm broken, I'm a victim. If I need healing, I'm stepping into my power. She would say, oh, you have everything that you already need. It's already inside of you. And she would use it to make me feel less than. And it took me a while to understand that. And let me tell you this. If you are spending time with somebody, even if they say all the cool little hippie words and all the little phrases, and if you're walking away from that person or that event or that healing session or whatever you want to call it, and you don't feel good about yourself, you're in the wrong space. Not everybody is equal. Not every angel is an archangel, right? Spend time with people that fills your cup. Spend time with people that you feel good about yourself when you're done, even if you have a disagreement. Even if you hurt each other's feelings, you can sit there and say, hey, I know I was right and you were wrong. Just teasing. But you can say, hey, this is how I felt. And that person can say, this is how I felt. And you guys can look at each other and respect each other. Even if you think the answers were opposite answers, you can still move forward because you respect the energy of that person, and that person is being respected in the space that they're in. You ain't got to change them. They don't have to change you. That will raise your vibration. I don't know. It was probably about the same time period I figured I was going to do something different in my life. And I was living on this house on 67th Street at the oceanfront in Virginia Beach. And if you're not familiar with this area, the Edgar Cayce Foundation is right there. And if you're not familiar with Edgar Cayce, Google him. He put this stuff on the map, however many years ago. And I didn't want to live next door to that. So I'd sold my house. The housing market was really crazy. I didn't have time to find something, so I was going to rent. And so long story short, there was no reason why I was denied the other rental properties, but I was. And the place on 67th Street approved me just by me making a phone call. So I'm like, all right, I hear you, universe. I'm going to 67th Street, which was a blessing, actually. There is a protective bubble around that facility in some of those houses. And I didn't realize I needed to be inside that bubble. I didn't realize that bubble was there, and it protected me for 9 months. Somebody had given me this Bible. I'm not a religious man. I'm a spiritual man. But I got a good relationship with Jesus, man. That guy and I are buddies. And I work with him every day. So I had this Bible and I kind of threw it on the table, because I wanted to look cool and feel good about my Bible being open. And I probably read about 15 seconds of the Bible, actually. And I was sitting there. It was lunchtime. I believe it was a Thursday. And you got to realize my everything was upside down. I'd lost hundreds of thousands of dollars through this haunted house. I'd lost tons of money on the home that I bought that I had just sold. I hadn't been working. I had been just really in a bad place through all this. And so I asked God, I said, if you're real, give me a sign. And I was eating a sandwich and I looked down and the Bible was open to, what was it open to, Andrea?
Matthew 16.
Yeah. The Bible was open to Matthew 16. And you got to remember, this had been there for a while. And there's these two guys that were asking Jesus to give them a sign as he had just pulled a demon out of somebody. So he just did this miracle, and they turned right around and said, "Give us a sign, Jesus." And Jesus said, "You can look at the sky and see the red sky and know that a storm is coming. You can look at the sky in the morning and see if it's going to be sunny that day. But you can't interpret the sign of the times." And he said that a wicked and adulterous generation looks for a sign, but none will be given except for the sign of Jonah. So here I am. Might as well have been the same guys. I watched this haunted house get fixed. I watched these demons be pulled out of me. At this point, everything's done. The house is sold, it's closed. I'm moving on. I've watched miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. And my arrogant ass is asking this man to give me a sign. And the sign he gave me, one of them was those things coming down in that hotel room. And this one in print that's been there for 3 weeks waiting for me to come in because he knew I was going to ask that question. He knows what's going to happen in your life. He sees it. That's where blind faith comes in. He gave me faith. And I'll never forget that moment. I mean, it's like going to your mom after she's given you the most beautiful life you've ever had, tells you she loves you every single day, 15 times a day. And you sit in front of her and say, hey, old lady, give me a sign that you love me. I mean, what a slap in the face. I mean, I was embarrassed after I read that. I'm like, who am I to ask you for this? And even though I did, the sign was still there because the Bible was there. That Bible could have been closed and I could have heard nothing. But he loved me so much. He knew where I was at. And Andrea and I were talking. And what did you say about people seeing miracles and stuff earlier about where they had to be?
Oh, I said maybe they only see it when, they get that sign from Jesus or God or the universe when they're at their lowest point. Mm-hmm. When they're at their wits' end, like they're about to give up.
That's right. And I told her, I said, you know what? I can relate to that, but what if that's the only time we look for it? That's the only time you look for the miracle. I see miracles every day. Every day. I had 3 miracles happen in my healing space this morning. I worked on this mother and her 2 little girls. They're 6 and 8, and they're extraordinary, and they're beautiful, and they're talented, and they're gifted. And The conversations that were had and the energy, just everything, it was miracle after miracle. It was beautiful. You know, you see the man who stops using drugs, the woman who stops drinking, the woman who's been abused her whole life and ends up on drugs and now prostitutes herself, picking herself up and changing her life and stepping forward. What a miracle. What a miracle. Those are all miracles. Are you seeing yours? Maybe your miracle is the fucking stoplight turned green. I've had those days. You know what I say? Thank you, please send me more. The next light turns green. Thank you, please send me more. The dog gives me a kiss. Thank you, please send me more. I get my paycheck. Thank you, please send me more. Somebody says something nice to me. Thank you, please send me more. Those are miracles, because if you need it at that level, it's a miracle to receive it and it's a miracle to hear it. See, there's a version of you haven't met yet. And you are one vibrational frequency away from becoming the person that you're supposed to be. Have blind faith. Start learning your affirmations. Reach out to us. We have a simple 3-step system to change your life. Part 1, you hear us talk. Part 2, you reach out. And part 3, you feel better. Because I can promise you, when you connect with us, it's going to change your life. Just like this is changing people's lives. Because I'm getting messages every day, every week saying, that resonated with me. I tried what you said. You gave me hope. I'm not sharing this shit to make myself feel better. I can promise you. Even though it's helping me heal stuff, I'm doing God's work. And I can't do God's work if I'm not authentic. And I was just reading this thing, watching this little video or whatever, and they say, I always thought the highest vibration was unconditional love. It's not. It's being authentic. It's 4,000 times more powerful than unconditional love. So are you being authentic with yourself? And what if you're being authentic with your unconditional love? That's a game changer. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It is definitely different than the first one, second one, and third one, because this is the fourth one.
Stop. I also had a slight panic attack thinking that the microphone was not plugged in, but it is. This is really going to happen now, Wes. This one's going out.
If this one doesn't stay, we're not going to record anymore today. So thank you again for listening to the show. Follow us on Instagram. Send your questions in like you've been doing. Follow us on VB Healer on YouTube. Hit the follow button. Help us connect with more people. And just remember, you are gifted, you are beautiful, you are loved. Every step you take raises your vibration. Every breath you take heals your body. Jesus flows through you to heal you, and together we will heal the world.
Thank you, Wes, and thank all of you for listening. We're going to head out now and go to behind the scenes.
With any luck, yes.
First take. You've been listening to Enlightenment Unknown with Wes Coons, your guide on the quest for self-discovery and the version of you we haven't met yet.